We've been talking about joins for a while now, but unfortunately, joins are really important for you to understand, so we've got to talk about joins just a little bit more. In this video, we're going to start to take a look at some variations on joins that are going to use some other important SQL keywords. All right, so we're going to focus on trying to answer the following question. This is our task. Users can comment on photos that they posted. No issues with that whatsoever. I want to try to list out the URL and the contents for every photo and comment where this occurred. So in other words, I want to figure out who is commenting on their own photos. Or more specifically, I just want to print out the URL and contents wherever a photo was commented on by its creator. So we're not printing out any information around the user right now, just some information from a photo and a comment. So we can solve this very easily by using a join and one other SQL keyword that we actually took a look at a little bit ago inside this course. Let's first imagine this joining action first, and then start to understand how we can make sure that we only print out information when it is a comment that was posted on a photo that a user posted. All right, so first, just the join stuff. We're going to do an inner join on comments with photos. So we've been through this process so many times, and I've even said that many times. So we'll bring down all these rows, and then for every photo ID, we'll do a lookup into photos and try to find the appropriate photo. It looks like first we've got a photo ID of 2. So we'd put that right there. Next up, a photo ID of 3. We'd put that right there. And then a photo ID of 1. So we'd put that right there. So there's our join. And now we could very easily print out the contents and the URL for this entire join table. But that's not quite what we want. We only want to print out the contents and the URL where the person who created the comment is also the person who created the photo. So to do that, we could find only the rows where the user ID of the comment is equal to the user ID of the photo. If these two values, user ID and user ID, are equal to each other, that means that the same user created the comment and they also created the photo. So in this case, it looks like the only case where that is true, where we've got a equal user ID, is on the middle one right here. It looks like the user with ID 5 created both that comment and that photo. So we would want to somehow filter out those other rows, and we would only be left with the middle one. All right, so I use the term filter out. You might recall that we spoke about the where keyword earlier on inside this course. We can use the where keyword to somehow filter out rows. We can also use the where keyword on the results of a join statement, like this kind of imaginary table that we have right here. So with that in mind, let's try to write out a query that's going to solve this little question right here. All right, so let's give this a shot. Over here, I'm going to first select the 2 columns that I know that we need, which are going to be the URL and contents. We're then going to start off with all the rows from our comments table, and we're going to join with our photos table. We'll then make sure that we specify how to merge these 2 tables together by putting in that on section. So we'll say on photos.id equals to comments.photo_id. So at this point, let's just put a semicolon in here, run this, and make sure that we see some data that looks realistic and that the query works. Okay, I'd say this all looks reasonable. Now we're going to add in a where statement that's going to somehow filter out some of these rows. I'm going to delete that semicolon on the very end. And then after the join, we will put in our where. So a where is always going to go on the other side of a join. I would never expect to see a from, and then a where, and then a join. It's always going to be from, join, where. And then inside of here, we can write some filtering criteria. Now, how are we going to make sure that we only select rows where the user ID is equal to the user ID? Well, remember, anywhere inside this query, we can refer to the comments table and the photos table. So we can say, take a look at the comments table. More specifically, look at its user ID column. We only want to find rows where comments.userid are equal to photos.user_ID. So this comparison right here is doing exactly what we just saw inside that diagram. We're just literally looking at these 2 rows, or these 2 columns. We're comparing the value in each of them and saying if they're equal, we will keep them inside of our result set. Otherwise, if these two values are not equal to each other, then toss them out. Now, this is another scenario where you really need to remember that comparisons like this are being done for every row inside of this imaginary table right here. So every single row gets that comparison done. We start off with the first row right here. We check to see if user ID is equal to user ID. If it is not, we'll toss it. How about this one? Oh, they're the same. We'll keep it. How about this one? They're not the same. We'll dump it. Okay, so let's now run this. And now, in theory, we are seeing the URL and the contents where in each of these cases, and again, this is like kind of hard to say in English, but basically these are all comments and photos where the author of the photo is also the author of the comment. So this would all be information where some kind of user commented on their own photo. All right, so that is pretty simple. Maybe not, I don't know. But we've seen the use of the where keyword inside of a join. Now, I want to do something a little bit more complicated. This is going to sound like it might be something that's kind of easy, but unfortunately, yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world. We are only showing information about the photo and the comment now, but we don't actually know which users, per se, are actually posting on their own photos. It would be really nice if we could somehow print out the username of each of these different users. But at this point in time, in our results set, we have no information about any users whatsoever. So we're going to have to do a little bit of thinking here to figure out how we can somehow get the username of the person who posted on their own photo. Let's take a look at that in the next video.